2008, through meetings with the commission and some of the elected officials, they wanted to look at different parts of the policy, such as, how do you go through the steps, and are the steps, the increases are at 5% through 7 steps, and maybe we could change that. At that time, the commission approved to have an ad hoc committee of a few commissioners, myself, Human Resources, and a couple of elected officials, department heads, to meet with all of the departments, and some of the county commissioners came as well, open meetings to discuss the parts of the policy that they liked, they didn't like, look at the grades. And at that time, from the minutes from the ad hoc committee, and I went back to look this up, for the most part, the elected officials were good with the plan. Their issue was, would it ever be funded? It wasn't any sense in having it if it couldn't get funded. The commission approved the plan in 2008. It was funded. They did get to the minimums. And then we had a lawsuit. So after that lawsuit, the commission abolished the resolution to put the plan into effect.
Can you elaborate on the lawsuit a little bit?
The circuit court clerk at that time, the previous circuit court clerk, sued for salary amounts for her employees, and the county clerk as well.
That were outside of the employee compensation plan?
Yes, their current grades did not match up with what she was requesting. Or actually, let me say this, it may have if you looked at the steps. If you looked farther into the steps, they may have, but the amount that was currently funded at that time, which is just that step 1, the minimum, that was the only thing that was funded. So at that time, the commission decided, since they could not hold the elected officials to it, they rescinded the resolution with the caveat that it could be used by Franklin County if we had new jobs come in, if department heads wanted to use it. And so we have used it as a guideline since then. And we've used it as a basis several times to bring different requests from department heads of employees to their minimums based on the adjustment of the code.
And what year was the policy rescinded?
2011, I believe.
So since 2011, it's been used as a guideline and not as a county policy.
Correct.
Is that, if I became an employee at the mayor's office, say the mayor's secretary, upon hiring, would I receive an employee handbook?
Yes.
Would this plan be in the employee handbook?
No.
So how am I going to know, this is what is expected of me if I want to, go further or increase my pay with?
Currently, we don't have anything for that. I'm sure when HR, if there are questions like that come up, discuss the plan, and that we try to use it as a guideline. But it always comes back to if the funding is appropriated by the commission. There's always that caveat. Even when the plan was passed, it was approved, and it was based on if funding was available.
And is funding available just because we've gotten so much more in sales taxes and things like that? We're just bringing in more, so that's why it's not a problem.
Well, sales tax doesn't go to the county general fund. It goes to the school fund and to the education debt service fund. The commission approved $100,000 to be set aside in a line that it could be budgeted later upon January 1 to fund the increases. They had Annette meet with the department heads to go over the positions. That's been done. Everyone seems to be happy with that.
But so why isn't something given out to the employees to let them know this is how I can get a raise, or this is how I can better my job performance?
We don't have an official policy.
It's not a policy, that's.
But, so, say he's a road commissioner, and I go to work for him, and he says, hey, if you go to mechanic school and get the certification, I'm gonna give you $3 more an hour. And I'm like,
Well, let me take
woohoo.
that back. The Highway Commission and the Solid Waste Board, they do have a plan.
Okay, well, I'm just using that as a generalization. Well, what if
But
he
you're
gets,
right.
what if he has a heart attack and die and the new boss comes in and says, I don't like you because I don't like your second cousin because I went to high school with him and so you're not getting any more raises. And let's face it, that sounds petty, but this is a very small community. I mean, there's just a lot of reasons without a policy in place for an elected employer to discriminate against the employees. And we have good people here in the county. We want to keep those employees and make sure that they're fairly compensated.
Understand? Based on the TCA code, we're
Tennessee Code
restricted.
annotated says we can't set policy for elected officials. We can do a guideline, and that's what this is.
But
This
we
is a guideline, but we can't set policy.
set a policy or a rule for labor for people who are employed through the county.
Not if that elected official, not if that constitutional office elected official doesn't agree with you.
That's why, the issue comes down to a policy implies that everybody has to follow. As an elected official, they don't have to follow.
So,
So we as a commission, our only authority is to budget, is to provide them a budget from within which they can determine what the salaries are. Now, I would love to have a salary structure that they have to follow, right?
I mean,
that would
because
be,
there's
would that
probably
be
a
kind of
lot of
neat?
people who would benefit from that.
But the law says they have complete authority within their office. What we're trying to do, what has happened over the last, since 2008, when this was put into effect, we went through a recession. And we were giving minimal, if any, increases. Now, you can look at the pay system as it's set up right now of all of our employees, and yeah, I see some inequities in my mind, in my opinion, that elected official probably does not. But what I do see is, because of the depression that not a depression, recession. Philip, what's my words here, but, we were not able to give much of a raise. So the minimum of each of the pay levels, the pay grades, we had people that were not at the minimum. So what we elected to do as a first step of equity, now the HIRW committee is going to look at the rest of the system and hopefully come up with something that can work between the commission and the elected officials. The first order of business was, if we say as a guideline the minimum is X for a pay grade, that's what they ought to make. And that's all this resolution does, is take those people who are not at the very minimum of their pay grade and say, we're going to bring you up to the minimum.
But
If
since
you're
they
above
don't
the
work
minimum,
for me, I don't feel like I have any way to protect them within that system that's really not there. It's just advice, because that's all of the guidelines.
to protect them, what do you?
Protect-
Honestly,
Protect them to make sure that they're getting the raises that they should or that they've worked for.
honestly, I'm
You
not
don't.
seeing that employees aren't.
That's good to
When
know.
when I'm working on the budget, I've got budgeted amounts and I've got their actual rates, and I'm not seeing where elected officials, now, we have had some in the past, but I'm not seeing that now.
Okay, well, you said we had 2 lawsuits, so.
It would be wonderful if we could set policy,
We
but,
can set policy.
you know, but
We can
TCA
set
code
policy.
says we
We
can't.
can set policy. We understand that the elected officials do not have to follow that policy, but we can set a policy. To me, you're not giving your elected officials much credit, because Andrea and I talked with Annette, and they say that they have worked with them to get to this point. So, to me, it's our responsibility as county commissioners to have a policy, because this is a perfect time to do it. We've got the funding, we can implement funding in step 1 and get everybody on the same page. We can have a policy. Like I say, we understand, but there are other department heads other than elected officials that make these decisions about pay raises. And I just think it would help our human resource department to have a clear-cut policy. We're talking about spending $100,000 of taxpayer money, and we're gonna call it a guideline. To me, it would have more teeth if it is a policy, and I am all for funding this. I just want to take this opportunity to do it the right way. And then, as county commissioners, I think it's our responsibility to do our best to fund it as the years go on, and don't get off track again. And I think that's the cost of living. That's how it should be funded from now on. But I just ask the county commissioners to think this through. Let's have the resolution and then come back and implement this resolution to release the funds for the pay rates. I'm completely for that. I think that needs to be done, but I think it's a good opportunity for us to do it the right way. And I think the elected officials have shown that they're willing to work with Human Resources and Andrea and to do the right thing. And if it's a policy and they're not following county policy, whether they can or not, shame on them. And if it, and just like with this court case that we have pending right now, who's to say, had we been doing this in the correct manner through the years, that we'd have been in this situation? Those are my arguments, or my thoughts on this. All for funding. I just think that we should make it a policy.
Commissioner Sneed, you raised your hand a while ago. Commissioner Sneed.
Yes, apparently there's some, we've been doing on the guidelines for 5 budget cycles now, is that right, Andrew? And apparently there's some thought out there that somehow the guidelines aren't being followed. And I wanna know from Andrea, in the 5 years of experience that we have with this process, have we had issues with the guidelines being followed?
Well, when it was rescinded, we didn't actually follow the full policy. And when we came to Finance Committee, you know, there were payroll requests, increased requests, it was entertained at Finance Committee, and then it would come to County Commission after the budget was consolidated, that kind of thing, what Finance Committee recommended. So, really, we already have all of the positions, we already have the classifications and the grades. Unless there was a new position that came in that needed to be graded by Human Resources, or, for an example, when the property assessor, the newly elected property assessor, he's restructured his office. He moved around quite a few duties. So he came in, provided new job descriptions, and there was kind of an overhaul on that office. But other than that, most of the offices pretty well have been there. You know, there's been a few little changes, but as far as the guidelines, when the pay plan changes by cost of living, which isn't every year, it's based a year behind on Social Security cost of living. So some years there's not. There were 2 or 3 years there wasn't anything. But a couple of years ago, I think, the guards may have gotten an increase an hour because they were so below. So there's been some small attempts, but not every office has had that same consideration.
Right,
So-
but okay.
So this resolution is based on the 2016-17 pay plan.
To get everybody to the
Adjusted,
minimum, okay,
yes.
but I'm talking about policy versus guidelines. What I'm trying to ascertain is, our department heads, set aside the elected officials, do we have an issue with department heads not following the guidelines over the last 5 years and doing what they're supposed to do per the guidelines?
Well, nobody's followed it because it's just a guideline. It's not a policy.
So we've had cases,
You know, the only use that it's had is for classifying a new job classification, a new job duty or something like that.
So that's a yes, they don't follow it.
But keep in mind,
just a guideline.
It's just a guideline, that's my point. It's a
every
guideline.
department head falls under an elected official. Every department head in the county falls under an elected official. Commissioner Van Bussen.
I think,
for me, the concern is that when we approve the 100,000, I'm all for going to step one. We really don't have any assurance that the department heads, elected or not, are going to follow the procedure to give that money that we're okaying to bring everybody to step one. I think that's our issue here that I'm hearing. And if there's a policy, at least we would have a leg to stand on if we get sued again like we are with Lydia today. We would have a leg to stand on to say, hey, we have a county policy, they're not following the policy. I think that would give us a chance to win this in court. Today, we just have guidelines.
Well, wait a minute, we had a policy in place in 07.
We don't today, though.
Right, but we were sued in 07 when we had a
We did
policy.
before the lawsuit.
So it didn't prevent that.
Yeah. What I'm saying is today, if we had a policy, I think it would give us a leg to stand on. I don't know that we would win, but it would give us
Right, I
something
understand
to
what
say
you're
that,
saying,
that we've put a policy in place, they're not following the policy. And whether or not we, approve the money, I don't think anybody on this panel is against not giving the money. It's to assure that the people get it in the right place. I think that's the issue, for me anyway.
And we do understand that even with a policy, they do not have to fund step one. We give them the money and it's theirs to do with what they want. But the point being, a policy has more, I don't know, teeth than a guideline. And it
Well,
also just cleans things up.
Plus, you've got the media sitting out here. If they report that this person's not following guidelines, I don't think they're going to get elected.
If they're not
next year.
following policy.
I'm sorry, policy,
Yeah.
then there's a good chance they won't get elected again.
Right, and
So-
you can hold elected officials maybe feet to the fire a little more, but as you say, that's not an issue. You have worked with them, and everybody's on the same page right now. Everybody understands that they're glad that we're funding this, and we can go forward with a clean slate and do what we should do as commissioners, and maybe they will do what they should do as elected officials, and if they don't, maybe the media will report that.
I haven't had an indication otherwise. And presently, if there's someone that is not at their budgeted rate, it's because they're in a probationary period. So,
Can you regulate employees and the grade they're on? Or, I mean, a department could actually just raise their grade or step.
yeah,
Give them the raise
they
regardless.
could say they don't agree with the grade
Yeah.
that we have.
They can go ahead and bump them to the next one anyway, so.
But
It's hard to regulate for you, isn't it?
It is.
You know, all of these are really good points, and I don't know that I disagree totally with whether you call it guidelines or policy or a process moving forward, and that's what we need to work on, is a process moving forward. I think we're trying to eat too big of the elephant here. This is just one bite to try to get them to the minimum.
we
So I think we'll
understand
go ahead
that,
and
Doug.
vote
We
on this
understand
and
that.
work the process then later. Now, one other point. As we were not able to give as many raises as the elected officials wanted, I think in general, they did follow the guidelines roughly. Okay? But in order to recognize, say, an individual employee who they wanted to give a raise to, yeah, they escalated the job duties and moved it to a higher grade. I can assure you that has happened, and if I were in their shoes, I might have done the same thing. But the process moving forward, we just need to study more to figure out how do we set up something that we as a commission like, that they as elected officials will help make a success, something we all can buy into. Right now, all we want to do was raise the people who weren't to the minimum to the minimum.
I have another question. Have there been cases of department heads that had employees under the minimum that used their budget to give raises to people at or above the minimum at the expense of people that were below the minimum. Has that happened?
Not that I'm aware of, unless they downsize their office. If they cut back their staff and they were able to, bring their people to the minimum at that time, they reduced their budget
So
actually.
as a group, they've been working, basically, depending on our funding, they've been working toward getting everybody to the minimum and going from there. Is that
If
not
it was
correct?
possible, but
If it was,
now,
that's what I'm
To
saying.
be honest with you, there's not much attrition in county government, especially in the administration offices.
Gene, I have to say that the 1 year I spent on finance, I didn't find that to be the policy, or the procedure. I keep saying policy. It seemed to me that, my recollection was, when the budgets were submitted to us, people were asking for 25 cents an hour, 50 cents an hour, instead of following the guidelines. Is that, Annette, is that right or not?
Right.
So I think it's an overstatement to say that everybody's following it, not to say that a lot of them haven't. But my experience on the finance committee, I didn't see it quite that way. Am I wrong, Annette, on that or not?
No. Since there wasn't an official policy.
Yes.
Because, through the hard times, 08, 09, 10, 11, I developed, at different times, based on the Social Security cost of living and on our average hourly salary. Based on that, I would come up with a recommendation to fund a flat amount. This last year, they gave a percentage, which is the first time a percentage raise has been given, and as far as I can remember. It's always been a flat, either 25 cents, 39 cents.
And that's how we got sideways with the grade levels. And that's why we did it last year on the finance committee, a percentage versus an hourly adjustment, because that messes up the whole scale when you do that.
Andrew, can you walk us through what it would look like if it were policy?
If it were policy, there's a pay plan, and based on what was approved in 2008, every 3 years there would be evaluations. The elected officials, department heads had the responsibility of evaluations. Based on those evaluations, and days missed work, that type thing, had to be positive in order to increase a step. You could not increase a step but once every 3 years. So that's kind of where we were in that process.
So if we were having trouble funding minimums in this step process, how were we able to give raises? It sounds like we were giving raises above the step process.
We just gave flat amounts, 25 cents.
But now you
Yeah,
would only
39
give
cents
raises
1 year.
in the steps. The only way you get a raise is if there's a cost of living
Yes,
increase.
yes.
So it
We'd never
takes-
have gotten to the step stage.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a policy would get us to that.
But in all honesty, in the years when we approved it was 08, you're looking at several difficult years where the funding was just not available with the increase in the medical insurance and the retirement.
Well, I want to do what's the best thing, and it just seems to me, we had a policy. I understand we had some bad years, but it seems to me we had a policy, we got sued, we got rid of the policy, we have guidelines. I want to be careful as a commission that, if something, I don't want to micromanage a department head's budget, for one thing. But I want to make sure that we're fair to all the employees. All the employees should receive the minimum amount and should be moved up by cost of living when that's supposed to happen. And if we have department heads that are, playing favorites and, not giving some people raises and giving other people raises based on anything besides what the guidelines, then
I'm not finding that.
I didn't think so. I don't think that happens, but, I don't know, I'll decide what to do when we're ready to do it.
I have a question for Annette. Annette, you're the one that deals with the department heads mostly. what's your opinion on, if we had a policy, would they follow the policy from your?
I think they would follow the policy. I think they want a structure.
Okay. And just to be clear that if there's a grade level and a step policy, each year there's a COLA, that each step will be affected in that COLA, cost of living adjustment. So there's really no need for anybody to submit in their budget anything other than watching their steps and knowing what the COLA is. And then everybody would get that.
I could provide that when I send out the
Yes.
budget packets.
Well, you do every year. So to me, it just makes all kinds of sense if we can get an agreement with the department heads. And I think we could. I mean, I think everybody's more than willing to go along with it. It's just that they've had some sour grapes from the past, I'm sure. But it looked good to me when I looked at it at the meeting with David Eldridge that chairs the health and welfare. It looked like a good plan, and it looked like each year if we got if you got a 1% COLA raise or whatever, you would move up to that raise. So.
Do you think the department heads understand at this point in time the pay classification policy, guidelines?
If there are new ones, might not.
Right,
But back in 2008, the elected officials that were here, they came to the ad hoc committees and we went through the plan, and at that time, I think everybody has a good understanding of it.
So
What bothered me the other night, after our health and insurance committee met, and I asked the question, did they have to give those pay raises? And everybody looked at me and no, they didn't have to give them. And then even in the newspaper, Andrew, you put, I think it was the very last paragraph in the newspaper, it was something about you worried that they wouldn't follow those steps. Well, I want to make sure that our county employees get their money. That's just, I don't have any objection to the $100,000. But if we can't, if we're gonna throw this money out there, we can't make sure they're gonna get it. I've got a problem with that.
And then all of the elected officials were in agreement with us bringing everybody up to their minimum one day. So like David, like Commissioner Eldridge said, this is a start, this is the beginning. If you want to speak, Sheriff?
I do, and I'm gonna try to keep this short. I've been here ever since day one of this game study. It's never been fully funded. You guys talk about an agreement. I'm 120% for what we're trying to do right here. I've voiced that since I've been in office. I supported 120%. You guys talk about an agreement. 30 days after the budget is finalized, myself and every elected official in this county has to sign a letter of agreement that I agree to that funding. I agree to certain amounts of funding. If I don't sign that letter, it opens the door for me to go sue you guys over salary. It would, and I will say this, I'll say it publicly, crystal clear. It would have to be almost the end of the earth before I would even consider that. You guys have been good to us. You're a commission and a past commission. I'm not trying to humor you, I'm being honest. This plan that has never been fully funded is finally getting to the stage that it is. Those years that Andrea was talking about a minute ago, when we've come in and it's been the bad financial times, it's been, well, they didn't follow policy. Well, we can't follow policy because we don't have the money to follow it with, okay? How many years have I come and asked for those corrections officers to be raised $1 an hour? I'll never forget this as long as I live. I'm asking for $2 an hour. During the break, during the budget committee, two or three commissioners said, well, if you'll just ask for $1, we'll fund it. I said, well, I'm asking. Never got funded. That be as it may, the point I'm making is this is super important, these employees, to maintain good employees. Any elected official, I think, and I can speak for myself, I don't know about others, would be foolish to cut someone's pay arbitrarily.
I'm in a situation with civil service, I can't reduce a person's pay unless they change a position to another position inside the sheriff's office. I'm also in a position, we talk about pay issues. I'm in a position where a probationary employee gets less than an employee that is after May probation. If they don't have certain training, that's a 5% deal. I'm also in a position, and there's other county employees that's envious of it, and I'm sorry, but civil service passed a deal many years ago where if funding was available that I can offer bonuses to employees that have a bachelor's degree, associate's degree, and a master's degree. And we do that. Very blessed with you guys' grace. I encourage you to please seriously look at passing this. The reason I do is these employees have been sitting here since early 2000s. Well, we've never got to the minimum. We've never got it funded. We finally, I think, are getting step one funding, the way it looks. I spent a number of hours with Annette a few weeks back going over hours, and we had a few issues, not over this, but over a few minor things inside. But from a grading standpoint, the best I can tell with our sheriff's office, we're on target where we should be. But the point I'm making is the ones that suffer with the policy and all of these things, and we put it off to the next meeting or 2 meetings away, is those employees. Those employees. And to me, the best policy you got is that letter of agreement. When that elected official signs off on that letter of agreement, agreeing, and each one of us have to do it every year, agreeing to what our pay is. And that's been that way ever since I can remember. And guys, I'm not trying to preach at you. I'm all about, I support this. I would like to see this done for our folks. They deserve it. And you know, we have been through some hard times financially through the past years. And I'll never forget going to Andrea after 2011, what we're going to do about pay this year. Because I had no guidance in what to do. I couldn't implement what the Gaines plan implemented because I knew that we couldn't get that funded. So we had no other way than the 25 cents, the 39, the percentages last year. So I commend you for what you're doing. I'm glad we're having this conversation. Thank you, guys.
I think we just need to make sure they don't get it.
I couldn't agree more with everything that's been said, but we have an opportunity. Yes, we need to fund this, but we have an opportunity to make it policy
It would be.
rather than a guideline. Why follow a guideline?
A policy or guideline, whatever it is, needs to be thought through very carefully. First of all, those steps were set up 8 years ago. I don't think they're appropriate today. That's just me. I'll just tell you my opinion. I do not think they're appropriate. So that's why one of my objectives in the HIRW committee was to bring this back up, to find something that'll work moving forward. I'm totally agreeing with you. What do you call it, a policy or guideline? But remember, when we sit here and say this, we're almost, when you say policy, you're committing to funding level. You're committing to the COLA, and you're committing to every step up those ladders that all these employees take. The fact they were called guidelines didn't matter. The elected officials lost confidence that we weren't following the guidelines. So why should anybody follow? So we need to study that system instead of those 7 steps and so many pay grade levels. Define what they are, and then whether we call it a policy, that's okay. But we can't do that tonight. If we did that tonight, we would be foolish. I'm telling you.
You're thinking it would be foolish if we delayed this and made this the pay classification policy and then come back next month and implement the funding of this? You think that would be foolish?
Yeah, I think that would be foolish. We've got the money in the budget.
But we're not really solving
this
the problem.
resolution date goes back retroactive to January 1st, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So right now, we are holding back money that we are all sitting here, most people agreeing to do, but we're holding it back. I say vote it in, let the committee work the the process, whether it's called policy or whatever, that doesn't matter to me. But it needs to make
It must
sure,
matter.
it needs to be something we're going to commit to follow.
Exactly. And it's hard to commit to follow a guideline rather than following a policy.
I
And
agree.
you paid how much? 40,000, how much money did we pay for the gains survey all those years ago? How much? $20,000? I just think that the smart thing to do is to make this policy and quit kicking the can down the road. And yes, as county commissioners, we should be held accountable to these elected officials to fund it.
What this is tonight is just bringing it up to a minimum.
I know that, but if you keep
I don't
kicking the
see
can,
anything that you cannot go to later to try to draw up a policy. But tonight, we need to vote this.
To bring everybody up to the minimum.
That's just bringing them up to the minimum. Like, it's been passed since January 1st.
I got that. I was
Here
on the
it
finance
is,
committee
you know.
that helped put it in the budget. I understand that.
It's in the budget. All it needs to do is be voted on.
Well, I think, Doug, I don't think there's anybody disagreeing with that, other than, will the employees be brought up to step one? That's the question.
That's left up to the elected officials.
Exactly. And
if
so,
he doesn't
will they
do
or
it-
not, is the question.
Well, I
if I
don't see
could-
any elected officials that wouldn't give a raise that they, you know.
I've talked to some of them, I would be absolutely stunned if they don't do that.
Is that your opinion, Annette?
Absolutely stunned. And on top of that, they understand that we're setting this budget, we're increasing that budget, we can decrease it as well. I'm not saying that it's just, that's our job. I would be stunned if it doesn't go just exactly how
What
it
you're
should.
saying, we can go ahead and vote on it, then from here forward, you all in our committee that we're on can set the policies and procedures for next year.
That's correct.
For all
That's what
of you.
okay.
You can work on them.
I called for the question.
Okay, the question's been called for. Since this is a funding resolution, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Iris Rudder,
Yes.
Gene Snee,
Yes.
Stanley Bean,
Yes.
Lisa Mason,
Yes.
Dale Schultz,
Yes.
Dave Van Busker,
Yes.
Eddie Clark,
Aye.
Chuck Steins, Johnny Hughes, Helen Stapleton, Barbara Finney, Doug Goodman,
Aye.
David Eldridge,
Aye.
Angie Fuller,
Aye.
Don Coker, Sam Hiles, 16 ayes.
That motion carries. The next is 8C-0117, amending the general fund budget for the judicial commissioners. We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a second. We have any discussion? If not, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Iris Rudder,
Yes.
Gene Snee,
Aye.
Stanley Bean.
Aye.
Lisa Mason. Dale Schultz. Dave Van Busker.
Aye.
Eddie Clark.
Aye.
Chuck Steins. Johnny Hughes. Helen Stapleton. Barbara Finney. Doug Goodman.
Aye.
David Eldridge.
Aye.
Angie Fuller.
Aye.
Don Coker. Sam Hiles. 16 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Motion carries. The next is resolution 8D-0117, amending the general fund budget for consolidated communications. We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion?
This resolution is exclusively in response to the new executive order raising the exempt level.
Yes, and that, the previous resolution to bring people to the minimums, this resolution was taken into consideration with that. You see what
Oh.
I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I understand. But nothing has really changed as far as the status of that executive order. It is still in
Still
limbo,
enjoying, yes.
still been restrained.
But looking at the minimums, knowing that I have these resolutions, I reduced the amount funded in the other resolution because of this, see what I'm saying? This is the second
Well,
time I'm
maybe you
saying
should have reduced this one after, put the other one first.
Y'all wanted to see these separated out.
I know. Well, you had to assume they both got passed.
This resolution here is raising the supervisor, director of the consolidated communications to the $47,000 that the executive order said that the judge stated. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's what this resolution is, which we were bound by law to do it in December, and it was stayed.
And that minimum is actually 982.24. So,
No, it's good. What is, Andrew, remind me on the dispatch personnel? That looks like, is that a
That's-
savings?
yes, that's a reduction through staff issues.
Has nothing to do with though, with this,
Correct.
with the executive order, it's just coincidental?
Yes, it's coincidental.
So it's offsetting that increase, but only coincidentally?
Yes.
I will say one thing, that there isn't one of us up here that would do that job for $47,000. That's the most thankless job I've ever seen. The leadership group went through there, this is my 4th year going through there last week, and I'm telling you what, that's a heck of a job.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Iris Rutter. Yes. Gene Snee.
Aye.
Stanley Bean.
Aye.
Lisa Mason. Dale Schultz. Dave Van Busker.
Aye.
Eddie Clark.
Aye.
Chuck Steins. Johnny Hughes. Helen Stapleton. Barbara Feeney. Doug Goodman. David Eldridge. Angie Fuller. Don Coker. Sam House. 16 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Motion carries. The next is Resolution AD-0117, amending the general fund budget for the drug court. Same situation. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Iris Rutter. Yes. Gene Snee.
Aye.
Stanley Bean.
Yes.
Lisa Mason. Dale Schultz. Dave Van Busker. Eddie Clark.
Aye.
Chuck Steins. Johnny Hughes. Helen Stapleton. Barbara Feeney. Doug Goodman. David Eldridge. Angie Fuller. Don Coker. Sam House. 16 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion carries. The next is 8F-0117, amending the general fund budget for building maintenance. We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? And these are bringing these up to the minimum, correct, Andrew? Okay. If not, ask the clerk to call the roll.
Iris Rutter. Yes. Gene Snee.
Aye.
Stanley Bean.
Aye.
Lisa Mason. Dale Schultz. Dave Van Busker. Eddie Clark.
Aye.
Chuck Steins. Johnny Hughes. Helen Stapleton. Barbara Feeney. Doug Goodman. David Eldridge. Angie Fuller. Don Coker. Sam House. 16 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Motion carries. The next is 8G-0117, amending the general fund budget for the finance department. We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Iris Rutter.
Yes.
Gene Snee.
Aye.
Stanley Bean.
Aye.
Lisa Mason. Dale Schultz. Dave Van Busker. Eddie Clark.
Aye.
Chuck Steins. Johnny Hughes. Helen Stapleton. Barbara Feeney. Doug Goodman. David Eldridge. Angie Fuller. Don Coker. Sam House. 16 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion carries. The next is Resolution 8H-0117, amending the Franklin County Board of Education general purpose school budget. We have a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? This doesn't impact the fund balance on this particular resolution, so we'll just have a voice vote on this. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next is 8I-0117, amending the Franklin County Board of Education general purpose school budget, a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? It doesn't impact the fund balance either, so all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next is the amending the Franklin County centralized cafeteria budget. We have a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next resolution, 8K-0117, to affirm compliance with the federal Title VI regulations. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next is grant pre-application for solid waste. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
We have a second? Any discussion?
You say you've done a good job getting grants.
He sure has. He needs to be committed for that. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to elections and appointments. Reappointment to Animal Control Board. This is the county's representative, Jared Bradford. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Motion carries. Hold on, all in favor, let me know, saying aye.
It's a long night.
I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? Don't have to slow me down. Any opposed? Motion carries. That's the only mistake I make tonight, we'll be in good shape. The next is the appointment of Animal Control Board, Sheriff Tim Fuller and the veterinarian Tracy Helton to serve a 3-year term ending December 2019. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next is the Pavilion Board, Eddie Clark and Barbara Finney to serve a 3-year term ending January 2020. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the Board of Zoning Appeals, a 3-year term ending January 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next is approval of 27 applicants for notary. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Iris Rutter. Yes. Steve Sneed.
Aye.
Stanley Dean.
Aye.
Lisa Mason. Dale Schultz. Dave Van Buster.
Aye.
Eddie Clark.
Aye.
Chuck Stein. Johnny Hughes. Helen Stapleton. Barbara Finney. Doug Goodman. David Eldridge. Angie Fuller. Don Coper. Sam Hiles. 16 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the motion carries. Any comments? One real quick just came to mind. In the past, we have always had a fund in the mayor's office to fund flowers and things when elected officials passed away or families or things like that. And that fund has been depleted, and the mayor's been funding this, I think, just out of his pocket. He didn't ask me to say this, but
You can do it, doing.
we do appreciate that.
Said that because they won't turn anything in.
But,
That's what the light is, right?
in the past, the county commissioners have always made a donation to this fund, so if you get an opportunity, go to the mayor's office and make a donation.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn, all in favor? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you tonight for the opportunity that we've had to come out and carry on the county business. We ask your guidance in our lives, your guidance in our thinking, your guidance in our decisions. Dear Lord, we pray for the county, that you would lead, guide, and direct us in all that we do, and be with us in our lives. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.